There he is.
I became PJ back when I was 15 years old. Wrestling is such a universal language. It doesn't matter what language we speak, what culture we're from. We just all want to be entertained.
The list is huge on who you hit the 450 on. John Cena, Undertaker, Vince.
When the Nexus stuff started, John Cena, he was actually the guy that told Vince, he's like, yo, just let him do this.
How would you think things have worked differently if Nexus would have won?
I think things would have turned out very differently. And a lot of people get angry by these things, but that's what makes this industry so much fun. I got to wrestle Bret Hart at MSG. Looking back now, I was like, wow, that's probably one of the coolest things I've ever done. I would tell a young PJ to not worry so much about the destination, enjoy the journey more.
Rewind, recap, relive. Woo! That's what the world is watching.
My guest today is a second generation star who's made his name known all around the world, including 66 different countries. You may know him best from his time wreaking havoc as part of the Nexus in WWE, former three-time tag champ, master of the 450 splash, the Darewolf, PJ Black. There he is. Wow, look at
Right,
him looking jacked too.
oh yeah, it's just an illusion. It must be the lighting. No, but I've been working hard. It gets a little bit older as you, it gets a bit harder as you get older. So I got to put more work in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know that everyone's kind of been asking the same question with these interviews lately, but you are in the process of recovering from that injury. Is it healed yet? Or
I'm about 80, 90% there.
nice.
Still struggling I can't believe, when I broke my legs, I was back in the ring within 12 weeks, and this has been like 6, 7 months now, and I'm still struggling. But I just gotta put the time in. I got some stem cells, and
Nice.
done some biohacking stuff here and there, and just got a new physio. So things are moving along.
Good. No, I'm happy to hear because you got to hit that 67th country. How much pride do you take in having been to 66 different countries to wrestled in that? I mean, that's insane.
I mean, that's pretty cool to think about, right? And what's even cooler is I've never paid for any of those plane tickets myself. I got to see the world for free, essentially. And it also just shows you a lot of those countries that I've been in, and I can tell you stories from different countries and different experiences, but a lot of countries, people don't speak any English. I mean, I only learned English later in life also. But it just shows you that wrestling is such a universal language. Like I could
Absolutely.
go wrestle in Congo when nobody speaks English, but they understand the art of professional wrestling, right? They
Yeah.
understand they understand when to cheer, when to boo, and whether people are marks or smart marks, whatever you want to call them, or we just all want to be entertained. We want to enjoy the show. It doesn't matter what language we speak or what culture we're from. It's a wonderful thing.
Absolutely. I mean, I've always said like, traveling to WrestleMania, for example, like I've always just been able to connect. If it's a wrestling fan, it's an instant connection, no matter where they're from in the world. And I think that's so cool because you instantly have something to bond over, like wrestling. Yeah, and probably much the same for wrestlers, like you're saying.
Yeah, funny story. Just to touch on that real quick, like I look a lot different, so people don't recognize me that often. But I went to a video game, like an arcade, one of those old school arcade.
Yeah,
It was like Dave and Buster's, but a little bit more retro. And I was wearing a wrestling shirt, and the security guard in the front is like, he gave me the too sweet, and we started talking wrestling. I don't think he realized who I was or whatever, but he had such a good day, like talking about something in common, that he ended up giving me his player's card, and I could play games. It was like for like 2 hours for free. Just
that's
because I'm
awesome.
wearing the wrestling shirt. So, that there's always those little things, and it makes me smile inside. It's like, oh yeah, this is why I do this. This is fun. It should be fun. A lot of people these
Yeah.
days take it way too seriously, and that's okay too, if it's your job. But at the end of the day, it should be fun. And when we're performing in the ring and you're not having fun, you're kind of going through those motions. Fans can see that. I mean, they cannot pinpoint it directly, for the most part, but subconsciously, they're like, oh, they can tell something is kind of off. And that's where the thing comes in, where great performers have that connection with a fan. They call it the connection, right? But it's, people can just feel what you're going through.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think the fans could be like really empathetic, if it's clear, right, that the wrestler's putting it on. Imagine what that guy would have given you if he knew that you were PJ Black and not just a fan.
I had another instance like that. I was living in Miami at the time, and lightning hit my house. So it tripped my ace. I had to like my AC machine, my somehow my dishwasher, my fridge, all these things tripped out, and so I had to get people to come fix it. And the guy from LG,
Yeah.
he saw action figure lying there, and he's like, "Hey, if you sign that for my son, I'll tell him this stuff was under warranty." So I got all
Wow.
electronic appliances fixed for an action figure.
That is so cool. That's bartering right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Old
Um,
school style.
are you still filming a recovery documentary like throughout the process?
I'm filming everything, you know. I got
Okay.
my surgeries. I'm gonna see if I can pull up at least one picture for you here, but I've been trying to document everything, and I did all my injuries, I documented everything, but I never like finished those documentaries. So maybe I'll turn it into one big one, or maybe just this one. I'm not sure yet. You know,
Yeah,
other than wrestlers, we're really just storytellers. So like
exactly.
if I can find a way to tell the story and show that to. Also, I got injured at AEW, and the guy in charge there, he said to me, he's like, "Hey, you know, Tony loves a good comeback story. So maybe if I present this with him, they can turn that into something." Not getting my hopes up on that, but you never
But
know, right?
why not try? Yeah.
That's
Oh my
my
God, look at that. So that's during the surgery, or
yeah,
obviously, right? So the
yeah,
doctor,
yeah.
did you tell them to take pictures as they were
I
going?
did. I
Okay.
did. He's a very young doctor, like super young. He's one of the best sports authors in Beverly Hills. And I was like, "Hey doc, you gotta take me, you gotta take some photos." And like when you usually when you ask doctors stuff like that, they kind of just like brush it off, or they just go, "Yeah, yeah, whatever." But I was like, "Hey doc, just please, just get a couple of angles. I need this, please." And then he did it for me.
Damn, I wonder if he's ever done that before, if that was a first. Like my patient had me document the entire surgery for
I
him.
wonder.
Well, I don't want to spoil it, fully because you're doing the comeback story and everything. But you have been teasing kind of like a new shaman character for when you do return. Can you shed any light on that, what you've been working on?
Yeah, he's Dr. Black or Dr. Daywolf, whatever. He's like a shaman character, and I dropped a few of the hints in some of the promos in the last days of ROH, where I mentored this guy Brian Johnson, which is a fantastic talent, by the way. Um, and I dropped a little bit of hints, but there's so much more layers to this stuff, and I really wanted to do it on a big stage, but if that's not going to happen, like we have the ability to do that on YouTube or social media these
Yeah,
days, I might as well just do that, because it's my own like passion project, if you will, and it's just like a think of this. He's a mixture between a Doctor Strange. Craven the Hunter, and he's like that type of character. He's like
okay.
almost like Leo Kruger too. I don't know if anyone can remember that character in
From formerly Adam Rose, right?
right. But instead
Yeah,
of that, that character was more creepy. This character is
yeah,
more fun and kind of like Doctor Strange. He's very witty. He always has a trick up his sleeve or a potion to create or something like that. And that's what wrestling should be, right? It should be
yeah,
fun. We want to watch the over the top characters. I want to watch Ultimate Warrior like shake the rope and run around like crazy. I want to watch Bray Wyatt talking riddles. To me that's entertaining, and I think that a lot of fans feel the same way. Because I mean, for the most part, most people understand the business now, right? And we just
yeah.
want to be entertained. We want to be. I don't want to watch a documentary of Bill Frank versus I don't know another Black Speedo guy.
No, it's funny you say like a Doctor Strange character. I'm thinking, I mean, we've seen like, Undertaker with his lightning and all, all these different characters that kind of border along like the mystical stuff. But I don't know if we've seen someone that similar to that. I'm thinking like a sorcerer almost, right? Like someone who would just
Yeah.
be able to pull something out of his sleeve in a match or something. That's cool.
Exactly, yeah. And I have a bunch of like magic tricks, the fire paper and the
Yeah.
fireball I got from I have a lot of magician friends who showed me a couple of tricks, and I think that'll make it fun. It'll make it fun.
No, I'm excited to see it. I mean, and so we've seen over the years how you've evolved PJ Black. I can't wait to see this one, but taking it back, what was the PJ Black like growing up in South Africa wrestling? What was he like?
All right, so I became PJ Black when I was 15 years old,
Okay.
and the laws in South Africa, you cannot be a professional athlete under the age of 18, right? So I had to fake some papers. I wrestled in a lucha mask with a long wig, so nobody knew it was me. I kind of got the inspiration from the Crow. The first outfit kind of looked like the Crow, the black pleather. Because I
Mhm.
was 15 years old, I was tiny and I was skinny, and I try to cover it up as much as possible. But it was fun, I think in 96, 97, I was still in high school. I was on the road. I had a wrestling match every Friday, Saturday, Sunday for a whole year, and that's how you get good, is by experience. And it was awesome just living on the road. And then, my last week of school, my father passed away. He was a promoter and a wrestler. And so a lot of this stuff that we were gonna do later in life didn't come to fruition. So I was kind of like just lost. So I was just a normal person for a while. And I moved to England and I wrestled on weekends and stuff like that, trying to figure out what am I gonna do when is this wrestling thing, what I'm gonna do, and if it is, what kind of character am I gonna play, or what am I gonna do, what moveset, all that stuff. And it was just kind of like back and forth. And after 5 years living in Europe, I went to back to South Africa, and I turned this PJ Black character into like I don't know what you call it. Could be like a porn star, I guess, or like a more like a raunchy character,
Yeah.
like the girl, the tiny speedos. I remember coming to FCW to the US. Steve Kerr and Dr. Tom were like, and Dusty Rhodes were like, yeah, those shorts, they're not gonna fly on TV. You gotta, you gotta wear real wrestling trunks. So that character has evolved through the years over and over. I mean, I like that. Like look at a guy like Chris Jericho. Like
Yeah.
how many times has he evolved through the years? And not everyone has to do that. You can be like a guy like Rey Mysterio or John Morrison. Like they're just not the same, but like you can tell who they are, and that those characters have evolved a little bit, but not as much as some other people. I don't know. I like
Yeah.
challenging myself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like going to different areas. Yeah, for John Morrison, the name changes, but the person is usually the same over the years. For fans that like mainly saw you when you got to WWE and might not know a lot about the South African wrestling scene, can you tell us a little bit about like what it was like really growing up in it?
Yeah, many people don't know this, but in the like 80s, 70s, 80s, and early 90s, South Africa was like an unofficial territory. Like, I don't know if
Okay.
I'm a, I'm a wrestling history nerd. If people know the history, like how territories worked back in the day before Vince monopolized the whole thing. You, you'd go live in a territory for a little while, work the storyline, move to New York, work that storyline, then you'd move all over. So South Africa was like an unofficial territory, like guys used to come out there, like I'm trying to think of the names, like William Regal was there, like
Mm. I heard you
uh,
say, did Undertaker have one of his first matches out there?
one of his first matches in South Africa. Yeah, he's been training for like
Nice.
2 weeks, and they needed a big Texan. And I'll never forget, like he took that turnbuckle, the first one, and he fell out the ring. Like the one that H and Ric Flair
Yeah.
does. That shoot happened to him because he's so tall. It
Oh,
was
are the
fascinating.
rings very different?
The rings aren't very different. I mean, he's a
Oh, he's
tall.
just a tall guy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like feel like he probably didn't get there yet in his training. So
And he goes right over.
yeah, but a lot of stuff like that. Like, I mean, I saw Hogan come job to our South African champion when I was a kid.
Wow.
There was no internet or dirt sheets back then, so nobody knew of this stuff. And I was like, I was just a kid. So like years later, I was like, wait a minute, seeing Hogan on TV, I was like, wait a minute, that's the dude, that's him. Like, asking my dad, and he's like, yeah, that's the guy, that's the guy.
That's awesome. And so were you like the first official South African star to make it big, like to get signed by WWE?
By WWE, yeah, they were. So my dad was a promoter, I told you, and
Yeah.
and so the promoter that he took over from, his two kids were wrestlers, and I believe they live in Texas now. I mean, I want to say they made it. They didn't make it to like WWE or TV, but they were well known in back in the day at WCCW. I don't know if you
Yeah,
remember.
W's okay, yeah.
Yeah, the Simpsons, the Simpson twins. They were two brothers. They were fantastic. I mean, they kind of like paved the way for guys like me and Leo Kruger and Angelico.
Mhm.
But they were really the first South Africans who made it. But we had many talents like back in the day, like our champion who Hogan jobbed to. His name was Jan Wilkins, and if people study history, you can go look him up. He was like a god back then, like everybody knew him. He was a household name. And even now till today, like I actually went to a South African event the other day, and when the lady heard I was a wrestler, she's like, do you know Jan Wilkins? I was like, I was like, yes, of course I do. I studied the history of it, but yeah, he was a massive name back in the day.
What is it like when you return home to like South African events? Is it a big kind of ovation? Because others have made it, but like obviously you had such a cool run here in well, all around the world, really.
Yeah, it's fun, like I look very bit different now,
Yeah,
so
right.
people recognize me. But the small town that I'm from, everybody knows who I am, and people always say I should move back there, become mayor or something like that. But but yeah, it's interesting. Like when I went to South Africa I think I went with SmackDown 2 tours and with Raw
Mhm.
1 or 2 tours, and those were awesome because
Yeah.
everybody knew I was coming home. I was doing all the media for it. And, I speak the language there, so
Mhm.
doing media in my first language, that was very fascinating. I never thought I'd do that. But yeah, for the most part, like now people recognize me for other things rather than wrestling in South Africa. But it's still yeah, what a journey. Like the last 20 years for me has just flown by so quickly.
I believe it. Yeah, like a whirlwind, I'm sure. I've had other wrestlers on that came through FCW, like Heath, for example, who spoke about, what they thought they were gonna see when they walked in, and then what they did see when they came into the big like warehouse like environment, and it wasn't exactly what they expected. Can you take us back to your first day there with FCW?
Oh yeah, it was awesome. So let me see. There's so many different stories here. Let me see. So think about this. First day at the wrestling school. You walk in, none of the coaches know who you are, right? Because they don't watch indie wrestlings, and I don't know, like it was me, Yoshitatsu,
Mm,
from Japan, and then there were a few Brazilian guys. They were like people from all over the world. They were trying to expand at that time. And I think me and Low Key, I mean, I think most people will know who Low Key is. Me and Low Key got there at the exact same time. So picture this, like none of the coaches know what we're capable of, and there's a show coming up. So they have to see what we can do. So that what they do is they just randomly pick two guys. They're like, you two get in there, do a 5 minute match. You guys do a 10 minute match or whatever. So I get thrown in there with Low Key, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be fun, right? Because I mean, I've been watching and studying him for years. I know everything about him. I know his moveset, everything, he doesn't know anything about me. So we go in there and this match just turns into because we don't have time to like plan anything or talk to each other. You're just kind of like freestyling it in there. So the match naturally just turned into this strong style match where we just like chopped each other and really forearmed each other, kicked the shit out of each other. And him being low key, he's got the like 3 or 4 moves that he's known for.
yeah.
Like for example, he does which I do now too, puts him in the trio woe on the corner and he does the double stomp.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, and I knew that was coming, right? So I would just like sit up and I would like German suplex him off of the rope, like stuff like that. I would keep countering his stuff, and he was like, he got really mad, but he was really impressed too. He's like, wow, like we did a really cool match. So how it worked back in the day is you start from the bottom, right? You set up the rings, you hand out the flyers, you do some ring announcing, you do all this stuff, and you work your way up onto the show. Uh, After we had this little match, Dusty was the head booker at the time, and he yelled to Steve Kerr, and he goes, "Whoever's the main event this weekend, bump them and put these two kids on."
That's
So that's
awesome.
that's how my journey there started.
Damn, that is so cool. I mean, there were so many coaches. You mentioned like Dr. Tom, but like Dusty, Dr. Tom, Steve Kerr, and was who were some of the others there that I might be
Norman
forgetting? Norman
Smiley,
Smiley, right?
Dusty Rhodes, obviously. Who else was there? And there was a few coming in and out, and this was, just before Bill DeMott came back in.
Right. Does any advice that Dusty gave you early on stick with you?
Oh yeah, so many things, and so many little things too that I didn't understand. Even Dr. Tom Pritchard, like my dad was a wrestler and I grew up in this, but like some of the little pieces of advice he gave me, I would never ever forget. Just like
Yeah.
dumb little things, like he was like, when you meet Vince, do and say this or whatever, and I was like,
Mhm.
why would that even matter? And when I did that, I saw the reaction in his face, and I was like, oh wow, these are great little gems that nobody will teach you in any other wrestling school. Yeah, I was very fond of Norman Smiley too. What a great mind in wrestling. I mean, he's still one of the coaches at NXT, like I could tell too when he's agent of a match or when someone implements something that they definitely learned from him. It's like it's awesome, and he gets so
Yeah.
happy too. Like sometimes I'll use something that he taught me years ago and I'll send him the video clip and he'd be super impressed. Uh, Dusty from day one, he just took a liking to me. I was very
Mhm.
fortunate in that, he helped me with like some character development stuff. And a funny story. So when I came for my tryout, I cut this little promo because nobody knew who I was, right? So Dusty gave me some pointers. He's like, change this up, say this, do this, right there. We did another take. We ended up doing like 30, 40, 50 takes. And after the last one, he looks up at the camera guy. He goes, yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and take that very first one. And that's the one they sent to the office, I guess.
That's so funny. Would you say you were strong back then with promos, or did it get better kind of over the years?
So I was really strong when I got there, and it kind of like went down for years and years and years, right? And then because I was trying, it was so hard because everyone that comes into FCW or NXT, you're trying to you find your voice, and they keep telling you to
Mhm.
try different things. And Dusty used to say this all the time. He goes, "Throw shit at the wall and see what sticks." So every week he was like, "Come with something different. Come with something different." So a lot of people could adapt and use that. A lot of people just got more confused, like where they need to
Yeah.
be going. I kind of went back to my first principles, and I'm much better now than I used to be. I think it's one of my strong points. Uh, but it was an interesting time, learning time, And then
Yeah.
we have like acting coaches, and we had like acting class, promo class with Vince for like 6 months. And then we had with Freddie Prinze Jr., like these,
Oh wow. Yeah.
yeah. So like
Huge
I learned a
personal.
lot from these guys, and I'm a late bloomer, so like I implemented a lot of these things a little bit too late, but not too late. Like, never say never.
Right.
Yeah, but it's that's a big part of wrestling, right? I mean, I teach a lot of seminars, and I do like,
Mhm.
I'll do a day just on character development or promos, and I do a whole day just on in-ring work and psychology, and then backstage psychology, all these little things that a lot of people don't teach.
Yeah, I mean, no, there's such important things, and it's so cool that you were able to, like I said, be around all those larger personalities. When it comes to moves, did you start using the 450 in FCW, or did that come before?
Yeah, I started using it there, but I mean, that was one of the first moves I ever learned. When I was a kid, I used to
Okay.
pull the trampoline next to the swimming pool, and I used to do that. Then I started doing it from the roof, and then I started building cranes and and doing that. And when I was 15, 16, and when I moved to Europe, I really wanted to use the Phoenix Splash as a
Yeah.
finisher. So my first match there was against Dave Burchell. I don't know if a lot of people can remember him from WWE. He played that pirate character,
Oh,
but
well, I think it was Paul. Was it Paul Burchill when he
Paul
got to
Burchell.
main roster? Okay, yeah.
Yes, yes. So he was a big star at the time in the UK, because everyone was tiny and there was a big guy that could do all these moves. So my first
Right.
match naturally in England was against him. And I plan on doing the Phoenix Stars, but I was just so blown up at the end of the match. I couldn't even like springboard. So I just climbed up and just did a normal 450. Yeah, but it turned out to be like one of the best ones I've ever done. And the coach at that time was like, yo, this should always be your finish from now on.
Oh,
It
that's
was just a
awesome.
move I used to do. And I was like, all right, yeah. So I did that. And even in FCW, like at the time, a lot of those moves were banned. And even when I got onto TV, I think my first match was against William Regal, and he's like, yeah, definitely not hitting that on me. I've had too many busted lips and busted open eyes from guys hitting me in the face with elbows and knees and stuff. And everyone there was like, no, he's really good. He can do really good. So he's like, okay, show me. So he put a crash test dummy in the middle of the ring, and I hit it perfect. He moved it. I hit it perfect. He kept moving it, and I just kept hitting it perfect. So he's like, all right, you can hit that on me. And then, when the Nexus stuff started, like John Cena saw that, and he was actually the guy that told Vince, he's like, yo, just let him do this. Just trust me. Just let him do this. And so say what you want about that guy. If it wasn't for him, none of that stuff would have happened.
That's so cool. That's an amazing story. And I feel like, yeah, when we watched you, set up for it, anytime the Nexus was attacking on main roster before, like you would sit there, on the top rope, it seemed, and really calculate how you were about to hit this and then made it look effortless.
Yeah, yeah, that was Vince's idea. He's like, yeah, you get the beauty shot, you get the camera shot. Like a lot of the stuff you do is so quick, so might as well, everyone knows what's coming, so might as well get that extra 5 seconds of TV time and just, and like show us what's going through your head. And like, I did this little smile all the time because to me it was fun. I was like, I'm about to do this. This is cool.
Yeah. And you hit that on some massive names too. I mean, the list is huge on who you hit the 450 on. I mean, we got John Cena, Undertaker, Vince, and then a bunch of legends. I think Ricky Steamboat is on that list, Bret Hart.
Bret Hart, Ricky Steamboat, who else? Even Big Show. I had to do two on Big Show. He's so big. That was so wild.
Do you remember what the original pitch was for you guys when you're in FCW for NXT season one?
Yeah, I was supposed to be like a reality show. Remember the Ultimate Fighter, the UFC show,
Yeah,
where all the fighters live in the house, and it was supposed to be something like that. And then, true WWE fashion, time ran out. They didn't get the house in time. A lot of other things happened. So like, oh, I guess it's just gonna be a wrestling show. Oh, by the way, the first show is on the West Coast, so it's live, because of the time difference. So like the first few weeks, it was all live, and nobody knew what was going to happen, what we were supposed to do, and like it was just a lot of it was on the fly, freestyle. All the promos obviously on the fly. A lot of the matches were too. People don't know that till this day, but it was a wild learning experience, and luckily for me, that was one of my strong points. Is just going out there and just doing stuff
yeah.
without knowing what's supposed to happen.
I imagine that doesn't happen a lot in wrestling, right? Over the years, just to have that freedom.
Yeah, and it's in older days that's what it was, right? Like you kind of like just freestyle and adapt. These days, kids just like choreograph everything, and but it's understandable. You have to do certain things for certain camera angles, and because of
Mhm.
live TV, like if the cameras miss something cool, you do like that really sucks. So it's important. That's just the way the business has evolved.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, a ton of interesting moments happened in that season one too. I remember watching it live as it was going. But one moment that always pops up is you and your pro Matt Hardy and Matt Hardy falling over the rope. What exactly happened there?
Yeah, that never gets old, man. People still send me those GIFs or GIFs until this day, and it just never gets old. It's funny every time. Like even if I send it to Matt, or every once in a while he'll send it to me when someone sends it to. I'm like, yeah, never gets old. Yeah, I guess we just did the entrance. It was the very first match, first day. When that happened, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get fired on my first day. But it was just like a miscalculation. He does the to the hard camera, and
Right?
I stepped on the bottom rope as he put his foot down there, so he just fell out. Yeah, and it's funny that they left that in too. Like, Vince loves stuff like that, by the way. Like, he never gets angry. Stuff like that just makes him laugh. Like, I've done some of the most crazy things, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get fired. And then he would just like can himself in the back. He's like, yeah, that's not how you do it. That's not what I wanted at all, but that was funny. Like,
I don't want to put you on the spot, but are there any that come to mind, like specifically moments like that?
um, yeah, and I think I've told this before. I'm not sure. Like when I was doing the bunny thing,
Oh yeah.
it was I forget the exact sequence or spot or skit or whatever, but I was supposed to. The way Vince explained it to me was like springboard over the top rope, hop like a bunny. He said hop like a bunny, and then you springboard over and then do the cross body. I forget exactly how it went, But I remember getting to the back and he was like this. He was like, he goes, "That's not what I wanted at all." But he was laughing. And I think it was Arn Anderson was standing next to me and he goes, "All right, I don't know if this is a good thing or not, but just get out, just leave, just leave. He's happy right now, so just leave." So I never really cleared up what I was supposed to do, what he wanted, but he thought it was funny.
That's so funny. I mean, I love that he had in his mind how he wanted you to hop like a bunny too. Like he had that set.
Right?
Well, I want to go to the big night now. So Nexus makes its debut. You know, you shocked the world. I remember watching that live too, and I think up till that point, for me, that was like the coolest debut I had ever seen watching live. What was going through your guys' minds like right before you head out there?
Well, we didn't really know what to expect, you know. So NXT just ended, so we all went back to NXT FCW at the time, and we were just kind of hanging around. We're like, "Oh, are we gonna go to TV next week, or what's going on?" And this was in Miami, and we were all living in Tampa at the time, so we all drove down. We didn't have any guidance. We didn't. They didn't tell us what to do, but you know, you always have your gear with you just in case.
Mhm.
And Vince pulls us into this office, and he lays out this plan. And we all kind of like look at each other and we're like, oh, yeah, okay, you're the boss. If this is what you want, this is what we'll do. And usually in wrestling, Dr. Tom used to say this always, what's old is new and what's new is old, right? So you can always go revisit a storyline or watch something back and get some ideas from it. But there was nothing to pull from this. You know, like we were like, I don't think I've ever seen anything like this before. You know, maybe some NWO skits or
Right.
maybe uh, some skits similar to that, but like nothing to that extent. So we all just, you know, I don't know what the other guys were thinking, but by the looks on their faces, everyone was just like, yeah, let's just go with it. Let's just do what we've been told. And yeah, luckily for us, it turned out great.
Absolutely. You know, I remember just everything kind of at that time in WWE just seemed formulaic. Like you had your things that popped off every once in a while, but it was something we hadn't seen for like years.
Yeah, and, you know, and it was exciting because like everywhere we went, people brought that up. You know, like there are crew guys that work for WWE that you'll never see backstage. The guys setting up the rigs and the stages and the camera guys and the, you know, the seamstresses and some of those people have been there for 30 years or maybe even more, right? So they've seen it all. Uh, you know, the guys that set up the stages, they usually sleep during the show and they all take down the SmackDown set and drive to the next town, like real carny style, like circus,
That's
right?
awesome.
I remember
Yeah.
when we're doing some of the Nexus stuff, those guys, you know, usually they'd sleep on the bus while the show is on, and all of them would come out and like stand in gorilla and watch the whatever we were doing, and then when anything else came on, they would go back to sleep. So, you know, I started talking to some of these guys, and it was really cool. I was like, wow, if these guys appreciate it so much, I'm sure like fans, although a lot of people were hating us at the time because we were just
Mhm.
playing the bad guys. But you know, I was like, wow, if it has impact on people like this who have seen it all, like I'm pretty sure people will love this. So, you know, it was a very short run, but like I think we made the best of it. I mean, we
Yeah.
could have probably done a lot of things very different, but you know, it's all in the past now. That's how it played out.
What was the reaction like when you got to the back that first night? Were those same crew guys were like, wow, and like were people backstage kind of like in awe?
Man, that's a good question. I haven't even thought about that in such a long time. I don't really recall when we got to the back. I just remember thinking, I was like, all right, cool, we're back on TV. So where
Yeah.
do we travel to next week?
No, I mean for sure. There, I think what's cool that I've heard you say and like other Next members is that I guess you guys found out an hour beforehand that this was even happening. So when you guys are out there shouting to each other and stuff, you know, destroy this, throw this, like that was real for lack of, you know, a better term, right? That was pretty much like you guys were really just destroying things, whatever you, other than the cameras, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, he told her Vince goes destroy everything. He goes, if you want to tear the security guy's suit, I'll pay for it. Don't worry. Do this, I'll pay for it. Like I was like, all right, this is cool. Like, you know, I was like, hey, can you put some you know, those garden scissors? I was like, can you put those under the ring? I want to try and chop the ropes. But I was like, I tried it during the day, and I was like, no, that's definitely not gonna work. But we didn't really know like what we were gonna do. We just like they were like just destroy everything. So like a lot of that stuff we just came up with on the spot, and
On
like
the
lucky
spot,
for us,
right?
it kind of like turned out good.
Yeah, it did. It was a shocking result.
Except for Daniel Bryan, it didn't turn out that good for him.
I know. I was watching it again last night, and obviously that part is cut out of the one that like WWE
Oh no way.
posted. Yeah, yeah, that's cut, and it's really good cut too. I almost forgot about it until I was like, wait a second, like, and then I watched another one of someone else uploading the real thing, and you see it looks brutal. It does.
Interesting, interesting. I gotta go watch that.
Yeah,
And it's so funny too because whenever I travel, I go to Australia a lot, and that was like what 10, 12 years ago.
yeah,
So a lot of kids that are in their 20s now, they were like 12, 13 when that happened. So it was a big impact on their life, like imagine what you went through when you went through puberty or like middle school, like those things stick with you for life.
they do.
So it's funny, usually when someone recognizes me or talks about that, I know exactly their age, right? Because they were during
Yeah,
when that happened, they were that age. But like lately, like these little kids have been coming up to me, like, and I was like, how old are you? He was like 8 or 9. I was like, well, this happened like 10 years ago. Like, and I forget, like, we have the network and we have YouTube and all these things.
right.
When I was young, there's nothing to reference on YouTube, and like these kids just go back and watch everything. It's so cool.
No, it's out there forever, really. And yeah, I remember I had like the Nexus shirt I did, and I think it was like high school, and people who aren't wrestling fans were like, "What is that giant yellow and like,
Oh, we had to wear those armbands everywhere, like even on the plane and the gym, like
wow,
we had to wear it everywhere. Like Vince was like, wear this everywhere, and people, it's gonna be a conversation starter, and this is how you get into that stuff, I think Ryback asked him, he's like, if people ask us, what do we do? What do we tell them? And I'll never forget Vince's answer. He just looked at us all. He goes, if somebody asks you what you do or who you are, you just say, I put smiles on people's faces. And that stuck with me for forever.
that is hilarious!" Like eight giant dudes with, we
Yeah,
put
yeah,
smiles
yeah.
on people's faces. You all started quickly working with John Cena after that. I think immediately, like after you attacked him. What was it like, kind of on a weekly basis, working with Cena in such a huge story?
It was awesome. And, for me, it was really cool because, somebody had to work him, and it was usually me on the live
Yeah,
events. I was more capable than all the other guys. Not that any of them were not, they were all fantastic entertainers, but like ring wise, like John's one of those guys who just, he's unpredictable and he just freestyles most of it. Most people don't understand that, but wow, like nobody works harder than him, and nobody's more I wouldn't say naturally gifted than him, but like nobody understands the business quite like him. He's on another level. Like say what you want to say about that guy, but his work ethic and just the way he puts things together is just very different to everybody else. So for me, it was awesome because for like 6 months on the live events, like the non-televised shows, it was always me working matches with him. So I learned a lot, and I think he learned a lot from me.
yeah,
Uh, you always do. You always learn from everybody. Like to me, one of the all-time greats is Eddie Guerrero for me. And before he died, he said that to me. He was like, every day I learn something new. I was like, wow, this guy learns something from every match. That means you'll never stop learning. These people that think they know everything, like that's maybe you do, maybe you just think that, but that's what's cool about this business. It's
yeah.
art. You always learn something new, and yeah, coming back to that, like I learned so much from John, just, in and out of the ring, just like working out at his gym, like his trainer, Rob McIntyre. It's also just a genius. I just learned so much from them.
That's cool to know that off of what we were seeing too, like on live events, you were working him so much. Because what we saw, I feel like you did have a lot of big moments. Not only did you pin Cena a few times and hit the 450, but I remember you getting A8 onto a car once and that backstage thing, and then also thrown off the cage. I think was that at Money in the Bank?
Yeah, one of the pay-per-views, and yeah, they got a horrible shot of it too. It wasn't like even like glorified, or there was no replay or anything like that. And I was like, wow, that was the biggest bump I've ever taken. I was coughing blood for like 2 days, I remember.
Oh
And I was
wow.
like, and the camera didn't even get it. They didn't even replay it on the Raw or anything like that. I was like, what a waste of a bump.
I do. Yeah, I remember you climbing up there and him throwing you off. That's crazy. I guess they did get a bad shot. It was more like a from above, right? We kind of saw you, and then you just disappeared.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
on the live preview, it was like from the bottom, from the side, so it didn't even look that big. It just looked like I fell into the ring.
You know, something that sticks with me after that was the assault on Bret Hart in the limo. That was a crazy, just a visual. Obviously, Bret Hart was in there, or maybe he was. Who knows? But do you remember filming that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was a huge Bret fan growing up, so like every interaction we had with him was just incredible. You know, we did a it was Nexus versus the Hart Foundation. We did it at Madison Square Garden, and again, that was a live event, so it wasn't televised. But you know, I tell people, I was like, yeah, I got to wrestle Bret Hart at MSG, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, how old are you?
That's
Like,
insane.
you know, he was much older, but it was with the new Hart Foundation with Tyson Kidd and Harry Smith Jr., which you know also two incredibly talented guys who learn in the dungeon. You know, so these guys are and just being in the ring with them, which you know they both good friends of mine, and Brett, who I look up to my whole life. It was just wow, like looking back now, I was like, wow, that's probably one of the coolest things I've ever done.
Yeah. It is. I said to Heath once when he was on that you guys are around in such a cool time because your like win-loss record will have such interesting names. Like Heath, Vader, you lost to like Vader and all those people. That was much later, but like you guys did so much work with Brett and all those legends that we mentioned earlier. It was really such an insane time, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, awesome, and good for Heath too. You know, he's one of the most fantastic talents out there. Most people don't won't know that, you know, because he's always just doing his job. But you know, if Brett was in the ring, he would request to work with Heath because he's just so
Wow.
good at going with stuff and like, you know, it's safe and just an amazing worker. Like, you know, the average fan wouldn't know that because he's not a world champion or like, you know, in every storyline. But like you said, you know, you got to do stuff with like Vader and like Sting and uh,
Yeah.
like all these legends, Ricky Steamboat and like so many legends.
I remember he said with Brett, like even with the medical issues that were around at that time, he was still like, do whatever you want, like go for it.
Yeah, yeah, and that just shows you how much trust those guys have in guys like Heath. You know, he's like
Yeah.
he was the only guy that could touch him in the ring when we did the Nexus versus,
Oh, okay.
and that's how those storylines came about too, where Heath worked with a lot of the legends because they knew he was the guy that could do anything and they can trust him, you know, and they'll be safe, and no matter what medical condition they have or you know what injuries they have or anything like that, they know Heath would protect them.
Well, I didn't ask Keith about working with this person. When you guys attacked Undertaker, what is the energy like when the gong hits and the lights go out and you guys are out there?
Yeah, that was wild. That was wild. I mean, we did a couple of skits with him, you know, like one where I 450'd him, and then at the
Mhm.
pay-per-view it was him and Kane in the buried alive match, and we got to do a run in there and bury them both, and like you know nothing happened, nothing came off that storyline. I always wish that would have gone further, you know, just it like
Yeah.
ended right there, but it was awesome, you know, like we all grew up watching Undertaker, and you know I even asked him, I was like, hey, do you remember that match we did in South Africa? I was like a little kid, I was there, and he was like so amazed, and he's like, hey, can you remember this guy, can you remember this guy, and you know just started off like a 2 hour discussion about the territory of South African wrestling.
Damn, that's awesome. Something funny about I feel the next members was that you definitely had the best finish by far of all of them with the 450, like it was so known. Did you know if Wade Barrett enjoyed that wasteland finisher? Do you know if he liked doing that? Because it gets some interesting criticism online over the years.
Yeah, I wonder, like he he liked doing it, and if you've ever been in the ring and do and tried that move, it's awesomely fun to do, but it's the worst thing to take because like it's so hard to take you want to take a flat bump, right? Because the more evenly you distribute the energy, the less it hurts. But that move, man, it just hurts every single time for some reason because, we're used to like flip bumps or back bumps, and
Hmm.
this one goes to the side. And I've been teaching that to the younger students so they know how to take that better and like, but like old school, we didn't learn like to side bump and front bump and all these
Right.
things. It's just a hard thing to take. But it's awesome to give. Like if any trainees are watching this, just give it to someone on a crash pad. It's incredibly fun to do.
Wait, that's awesome. I mean, it looks great for him to do it. I remember the scream, the pull him back and put him down. But that's interesting to hear that it wasn't great to take.
What did he end up calling it? What was the name? Because we
The wasteland is what we knew.
okay, that's the PG version. It was actually in the beginning he called it the Yank Smasher, because he played the British bad guy that called the Yank Smasher.
Wait, that's awesome. That is that is the PG version.
Yeah.
So, like everyone knows how SummerSlam ended up for the Nexus, and not the way a lot of people wanted. How would you think things have worked differently if Nexus would have won? Like, was there any plans concrete for if Nexus was going to win, or do you have any idea what maybe could have changed?
Yeah, I mean, we were just rookies at the time, right? So we were just doing what we were told. Like I think if we were there a little bit longer, if things were a bit different, we would have fought for a little bit more and we would have inserted certain storylines or finishes or gimmicks or spin-offs or anything ourselves. But at the time, we were just like, all right, we're just so fortunate to be here. We're just gonna kind of listen to what we're supposed to do, and I think things would have turned out very differently. I mean, that was like 7 months into our run, right? We were
Yeah,
just getting started, really. We didn't even like Nexus didn't even have a WrestleMania moment. That's how short that run was, if you think about it. And it's so wild that people still talk about it. That had so much impact, but it was such a blimp in WWE history. Yeah, I mean, who knows, man? It could have played out so different. Like we could have had. I think it would have been cool if we just had a longer run, maybe like, 2, 3 years or whatever like that. That would have been awesome. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe
yeah,
there'll be a reunion someday. I don't, not very likely, but who knows, And it's just cool that people are still talking about it till this day. Like I mean,
yeah.
there's a lot of other great things that happen in WWE. I mean, so many great things over the years, Like sometimes if you're not a true fan, you have to go think about it, or someone mentions something, you're like, oh yeah, that did happen, like for example, I'll give you a silly example, but remember the Matt Hardy MVP storylines where they were trying
Yeah, with
to
the
out.
basketball, right?
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
awfully fun, right? But like, if you talk to people, like you say one Nexus thing, you say the SummerSlam thing, or you say that, like most people will remember that.
yeah. No, no, you're right. It's funny. You have to sometimes go and dig deeper into like some of the fun stuff that was happening around then, and go back to what you're saying too, of like not take it so seriously. Just have fun watching it.
Exactly. It should be fun. Like everyone's a what's the term? I forget, the armchair critic these
Oh
days,
yeah,
or
yeah,
backseat driver, and that's cool. That's fun, because it adds to it's kind of like betting on sports, right? It adds to the
the
experience.
excitement, right?
But you gotta understand too. People always think that they can book better or write better storylines or do better, but that's not how the game works. It's a lot of people involved in this, and a lot of handcuffs we have lately with live TV and stuff like
Hmm.
that. But now that it's on Netflix, I think I see them pulling back a lot of those things. So I'm very excited for, a lot of the old timers. Like I remember when I was a kid, like I used to like fight with old timers so much, and because they didn't like that it keeps evolving all the time. But when I got older, I was like, yeah, I understand. You have to just evolve with it. And like, if otherwise you're going to get left behind. And then that's what's so cool
Yeah.
about this business. It's going to keep evolving. Like, we went through the attitude era, and then the little reality era, and then whatever eras you want to call it. I call it the Hunter era, the NXT era, or whatever. But, it just keeps evolving, and it's just going to keep going to different directions. And then that's honestly something that's really cool about it. It's not something to not black about it.
Yeah. Have you ever heard people say that like you were ahead of your time a little bit with your style, or do you think you were kind of like you got to WWE at the perfect time, would you say?
Yeah, maybe, I think I got there at the perfect time. I think I just wasn't mature enough to pull off the things that I wanted to, and that's essentially why I left. But yeah, it's all about timing if you think about it. Because when I was in FCW, there were some incredibly talented guys and girls that never made it anyway, and there were some
Hmm.
guys that were just average, and now they're main eventing the big pay-per-views.
Yeah.
So it's really just about timing and attitude in the sport. Because it's not like baseball or like, for lack of a better term, real sport where you can look at statistics and see who's the best. Like in wrestling, it's like it's a show. It's like whoever sells the most t-shirts, are they really the best?
Right.
Entertainer or like whatever. I mean, but like, and a lot of people get angry by these things, but that's what makes this industry so much fun.
You're right. Is all those
So
elements.
different. There's nothing like it, right? You can't
No,
explain to
there's not.
people who's never seen this. It's like, what is it? It's like a Broadway show, it's like a stunt show, live soap opera. My dad used to call it a stuntman's ballet.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
you
But
know,
that's very good too. But and it's true. Like personally, I'm not a big, conventional sports guy. But then, people who don't really get wrestling will say like, "Oh, you like wrestling? Why don't you like other sports?" And it's like there's no correlation between the
no
two.
correlation. I'm sure you have this too. I mean, where did you grow up? You
New
grew up
York.
in New York. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So, I grew up in South Africa. I remember only I was in standard four, so that was like grade six. That was the first time a WWE event, or WWF at the time, was broadcast on TV. So a lot of people in South Africa, they only knew the local stuff. They didn't know that WWE, all this stuff existed. And later in like 99, we got MTV, so we got WCW. And all these kids were just like, wow, there's all this wrestling. And I introduced them to New Japan,
Yeah.
because my dad has been traveling for years and like bringing me back tapes. I was getting VHS tapes back in the day, and I was like
Oh my
showing
God.
all the kids at school were coming to borrow my tapes and like looking at action figures. It grew so quickly. Like once at first, and it was WrestleMania 4, the main event that they broadcast on TV, and that was game, set, and match. Many people don't know this. Also, a little fun fact: South Africa is the third biggest wrestling population in the world.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, a lot of people don't, and it's a relatively small country. It's
Is
like the
is
size
it
of Texas.
what's first? Is it Japan or for
Uh,
wrestling
I
population?
think I think US
Oh,
is first.
US is first? Okay.
First, yeah, and then it's like I forget, it was like India or second or something.
Oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly, a billion people, and then third, like, and then South Africa, a tiny little country, which is funny.
That's insane. So like whatever the the fraction works out to, like there's a lot of wrestling fans in South Africa.
Oh
Like
yeah, like
the person or something you run into might know something about wrestling.
like more than 50%, like one out of two people
One out
will
of two people, yeah.
will like
Um,
regularly watch the storylines.
yeah. No, it's funny, like yeah, when I was growing up, I was in, going to the WWE show was like the coolest thing to me. But now that I look back, like some of the coolest memories would be going to like, Northeast Wrestling or like Pro Wrestling Syndicate in New Jersey or something like that. These smaller indie shows were so much fun to go to and see like more of an intimate setting with a lot of these guys.
Right, and for a wrestler too, that's my favorite part. Like that's
Yeah.
my definitely my favorite part of wrestling. Someone new for the first time that I've never seen or wrestled before. You just mentioned the Pro Wrestling Syndicate. I remember my second match after WWE. I had a match there, and I got to work Amazing Red.
Oh,
That's
that's
another guy
amazing.
I've been studying my whole life. I've been, those matches he had with AJ Styles back in
Hmm.
TNA days, and with Low Key and like Samoa Joe, like what a fantastic talent that was. And like I'll sometimes watch back these old matches because like I forget about them. I've had thousands of matches, like the one against Red, and like the first one against Ricochet, and like guys like that. I watch it back and I'm like, wow, this was really good. Like if I was a fan sitting in the crowd, this I would remember this forever.
Yeah.
And like I've been doing this for what, since 96 now. What's it, like 25 years, like roughly. And we were talking about this earlier, like every once in a while a kid would come up to me and say something, and I'll think to myself, yeah, this is why I do it. I had a match in I don't forget when it was, Canada, in the small little town up north, like in the snowy town. And we had a decent match. The guy I was wrestling, I've known him for a long, long, long time. Everybody in Canada knows him, but he had food poisoning or he was hungover or something. So we had to like create this match where, like he powders and he goes to throw up under the ring without people knowing. He'd come back in and, like I had like 3 or 4 kids come up to me and be like, yo, that was the best match that I've ever seen live. And I was just thinking to
Awesome.
myself, I was like, wow, like the way we worked around that and the way we designed that makes me feel good, that
Yeah.
people appreciate the art of it.
Absolutely. The creativity is there too. Like that's really cool. And yeah, like more of that intimacy and the fact they can come up to you afterwards, you can get
Yeah.
that immediate critique of the match rather than like looking at it online or something.
Right. Yeah. I love that. That's my favorite part, like that's why we sell merch after the show is,
Yeah, you're right.
make some extra bit of bucks, but for me, it's just the fan interaction to see what they think and how they respond to certain things.
Yeah. Well, so like I said, master of the 450. I want to go to just a few we saw you hit in WWE. One of them being the one on Kane and Money in the Bank. You said you take a lot of pride and like that 450, perfect. You always hit it perfect. That one looked extra impressive though. And I don't know how you were balancing on that ladder. Was it as hard as it looked?
Oh, it was even harder than it looked. Like, wow. I actually did a whole podcast just on that the other day on Marty Scurll's podcast, and he got some cool angles and some good
Oh
sound clips.
wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, some cool sound clips. Like, yeah, check it out sometime. Some really cool. Um, because I remember Mark Henry said, well, actually, no, Booker T was on commentary. He said, it's like you hit that inside of a phone booth. And I can remember that's what it felt like because I never like really tried it or practiced it the day before. I put the ladder up there and I climbed up and I was like, yeah, I can do this. But like on the night when I climbed up there and the whole ladder was kind of like bouncing and I was like, my legs were shaking and I was like, oh wow, this is so close. Because usually I can get distance, get out, right? But there was a ladder there and there was a ladder there. So I couldn't do anything. So I had to like get the bounce, jump up, turn, and then turn my body this way and land. And yeah, I don't know. I honestly have no idea how I did it. The I actually said this to Marty. I was like, man, it was much harder than it looked. And he goes, oh my God, because that looked so difficult already.
That's insane. Are there any that, we didn't see maybe on like a house show or outside of WWE that you're proud of? Any 450s you hit?
Oh yeah, so many, so many. So like when we go on the road, we wrestle like the same guy on the same loop, right?
Right.
So I remember wrestling Wade Barrett right after the Nexus thing. He was still a heel. I was turning into the baby face. And the first night we do the spot where, we both climb up to the top and we jerk for position. Eventually I get the better of him. He falls off and then I just hit it. Right. So the first night he was like super close. And I'm like, hey, dude, if you can go a little bit further in the middle, that's where the bounce is, right? We both get hurt less. So the next night he takes the bump, he rolls one over. I hit it. And the next night I'm like, hey, you go a little bit further. So the third night he goes boom, rolls a little bit further over halfway, which is my favorite spot to hit it. Uh, and then the fourth night I was like, hey, go a little bit further. So he was trying to be funny. So once he bumped, he rolled all the way to the other side, thinking I was going to climb down and hit it from the other side. And I was like, I'm already here. And I climbed up. I was like, okay, this one I actually got to concentrate. And I hit it perfectly. And I got to the back and he's like, all right, now I know I can literally lie anywhere and you will hit. So I don't have to like trying to get in the spot. That was a memorable one. Another memorable one was we've been on the road for like I think it was like 28 days. We were just tired and sore. And I was wrestling Jack Swagger we were in China. And I was like, I'm not gonna hit this dude. I can't do it. My body hurts. I don't have the bandwidth for it, whatever. But when we got out there, Wade Barrett was injured too, by the way. So he just came out to do a promo. So he came out to do the promo, and we're like, oh, we're in China. Nobody speaks English. They're not gonna even know who we are, like blah blah blah. When Wade came out, that was the first appearance he's done in months on TV because he was injured, and the whole crowd stood up and started going, "Welcome back, welcome back." And we're like, "Oh wow, okay." So they get it, they understand it, they watch the show, and me and Swagger were like third or fourth match. We went out there, and he grabs me in the hole and he goes, "Hey, I know you don't want to hit this move, but I'm gonna make you do it right now. So we just woke up into this spot, and like before I could even say anything to him back, he just whipped me into the buckle. He goes, move and hit it. So, I'm in the buckle. He does the shoulder where he hits the post and he just puts himself into position. I'm like, damn it, he got me. I gotta get back. What do I do? Just cover him or like go into a next sequence.
Yeah,
So I just did it, and then, the people went crazy, and like little ones like that sticks out to me. But I'm sure there's been thousands other that I can tell you stories about.
that is so cool though. That moment, wow. Like him knowing the energy was just too big for you not to hit that.
Yeah, exactly. He was like, and good call too. Like stuff like this happens all the time. Like you plan something and it goes a different way, and you just kind of have to adapt. That's one of my favorite things about wrestling. They don't teach that, and it's hard for the new school kids to have that skill.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I want to thank you so much for your time. This has been such a fun interview. You tell some amazing stories, like you said, storytellers at the end of the day, and you did a great job. Final question for you is what I ask everybody. If you could go back to the beginning, before you embark on this long journey and tell young PJ any bit of advice, what would that be?
Oh wow, that's a tough one. I think about that a lot actually. There's so many things. But like if it's the butterfly effect. If you do change anything, then you wouldn't be in this position right now. I would have been doing something
I've
completely.
I've heard that so many times from people when I ask this, and I'm like, that's so cool that like everyone thinks of it so like literally, like I don't want to change it. Like I love, what I'm at right now.
Yeah. But I mean, if you have to, if the gun to my head and I have to pick something, I would tell the young PJ to you know, uh, not worry so much about the destination, just to enjoy the journey more, if that makes any sense. Like ever since I was 8 years old, I knew this is what I wanted to do full time. And once I got to my first WrestleMania, I was kind of like just sitting around and be like, huh, okay, I made it here. So what's my next goal? So I was so enthralled about like the destination that I didn't enjoy that journey. It took me 10 years, to get there. And that was, looking back now, that was the most fun time in my life. The most fun time in my life in wrestling, other than Lucha Underground, was that year I spent in FCW. Like that journey to get there. Like I didn't even think about anything. I was just like, wow, everyone there was trying to make it to TV. And I was just like, I'm getting paid to wrestle every day. I've made it. Like, I don't care. Like,
No, that's awesome. And I mean, apart from wrestling, I feel like that could go to life as well, like don't worry so much about, where you end up. That's the journey is what matters. That's great. And you also gave a little sneak peek. Hopefully we could have you back on going underground in the future, also home on this channel, and hear all about that time in your career as well. So
oh yeah, some very interesting stories there. I mean, yeah, definitely have to do a whole podcast just on that. So let me know when you're ready. I'm down.
for sure. Well, thank you so much.
Rewind, recap, relive. Woo! That's what the world is watching.